Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to Live from Cleveland at Home. We are lucky enough to be joined today by three members of the Ingenuity Fest organization, and they're going to talk a little bit about their move to becoming an online music festival for this year's 2020 experience. It's called Virtually Ingenious, and it is a really cool plan. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you and tell us a little bit about how they are involved with Ingenuity Fest and how long they've been involved with Ingenuity Fest. Emily, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you for having us all. My name is Emily Applebaum. I am the artistic director of Ingenuity Cleveland, and I've been with the organization just about 5 years. So 2020 would have been my 5th festival with the organization, and we're happy that we have a way we can keep going.
Awesome. James?
I'm James Carroll. I'm the music director, and I've been working with him for about the same amount of time. I think 5 years is the same year I started too. Yeah, it was right when we moved to the Hamilton location. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy.
Awesome. And Meg?
And my name is Megan Stepka, and I was a performer at Ingenuity Fest first. I just saw some old photos on Facebook and my memories that I shared. So I think 2016 was the first year my band played at Ingenuity Fest, and we were on the big negative space stage. And then we couldn't stop doing that. So we played the next few years when we could. And I think about 2 years ago, I really understood what the engineers were and how Ingenuity worked behind the scenes to put on Bright Winter and to do all this behind-the-scenes artwork for other festivals happening in Cleveland. So I started showing up to the engineer meetings on Thursday and just started contributing other skills I didn't necessarily know I had to help put on some of these festivals. Last year, I got involved a little more with the team Ingenuity and curated and created a big multimedia stage, and that was the best. And now here we are.
Yes, awesome. And Emily, I doubt that there's anybody watching in Cleveland right now that is not familiar with Ingenuity Fest or the Ingenuity Fest of the past. I don't know where those people are, but I know that if they just happen to tune in, maybe they're watching from somewhere else in the United States. Tell us a little bit about like the Ingenuity Fests of the past, how long that festival's kind of been around, and then maybe like what you guys were able to kind of do over the last 5 years with it. It's a long question, but.
No, it's a perfect question, and certainly appreciate the humbling way you ask it. I'm going to say that for those of you who haven't been to an Ingenuity before, we were started in 2004, 2005 by a group of folks who really just had a vision for bringing energy back to the urban landscape, and especially downtown Cleveland at that time. That was really before we enjoyed a lot of the kind of reinvestment and reinvigoration of our downtown core. James Levin, Thomas Mulready, Chuck Karnak, through those first few festivals with the Ingenuity team, and we moved around to different locations, putting large-scale art and technology and interactive experiences into unusual and underutilized pieces of the urban landscape. A lot of folks remember quite famously we were under the Detroit Superior Bridge on the streetcar level there. About 5 years ago, as I was joining, the organization really sought to explore more of a year-round mission, more of a year-round service-based approach to the arts landscape here in town. And so really that has been where I've been so lucky to bring my background in architecture and urban development to the table. We found an amazing facility. James mentioned, moved to the Hamilton Collaborative with some like-minded partners, Soulcraft Cleveland, Skidmark Garage, Rebuilders Exchange, all of these small creative businesses who are either starting up or scaling up came together and imagined what a large-scale arts facility could look like in Cleveland that didn't follow a traditional nonprofit model, that didn't follow a traditional presenting organizations model, but thought much more collaboratively about how to create and how to present. And I think Meg really, characterized it perfectly in terms of how we hope to relate to Cleveland creatives. You may be an attendee or a performer at one of our large scale events, but very quickly, I think it becomes a place where creative people feel that they can be themselves and try out new things and kind of let their imaginations run wild. So we do have a whole range of ways that we support the community through entrepreneurship training and volunteer days. And as Meg mentioned, the Engineers, which is our creative collective force.
Awesome. And so obviously in March of this year, as coronavirus became a reality, and the wheels start turning, thinking ahead of time to September and thinking, oh man, maybe we're not going to be able to have this festival as we've had in the past. And we have to think about how we're going to rework this. At that point, kind of how long ago did you start formulating this plan of, okay, we can still have like a virtual music festival. Okay, we can still do some of like the marketing that people have come to like know us for. How did this particular incarnation of Ingenuity Festival come into play?
Sure. Well, I will say, obviously, like so many organizations in town, we held out hope for quite some time that we would be able to hold the physical event. And Ingenuity, what makes it great is that immediacy, the togetherness, being in community. A lot of our works are tactile and interactive, and yes, they are technological, but a different flavor of technology where you're right there and you're using your body and you're in community and we're together building, and there's a real synergy that happens. And so we have a very large facility. It's 350,000 square feet. And what we spent a lot of the summer doing is thinking about how to reconfigure that space and socially distance and think about time ticketing. And we were very engaged with Arts Cleveland and the various roundtables, Cuyahoga Arts Education Consortium, the various roundtables of just programmers and promoters who were thinking about how to work in this era, and listening to a lot of folks who moved very quickly into virtual space and then having a hard time figuring out, well, how do we monetize it, or don't we? And how do we deal with people who have screen fatigue and are on Zoom meetings all day wanting to go to virtual space at night? And, bluntly, once, as we went through the we can't hold a socially distanced festival, we can't, back and forth, there was a period of time where we actually said that we were not interested in doing a virtual festival at all, for a couple of reasons. One, there were some great organizations who had stepped out really early. And that's a little bit of foreshadowing there, but Meg and the virtual 48-hour music festival is one. Virtual shows Clee, some of the independent venues. And we wanted to think about how to leave space for those folks to innovate and turn inward and look at capacity building and other ways we could help. We came involved in large-scale socially distanced outdoor pop-up art and a project called Voices of Clee. It really was the experimentation of folks like Meg who separately, and from day one said, no, we are going to look at virtual space, and we are going to look at what community looks like, and, prototyped her 48-hour music fest model, and, approached us, and together we, sparks flew, and we saw a way to change up her model a little bit, change up maybe some of what we had been thinking about. And I think it's the silver lining of all of this is, I think we'll kind of continue to work together and play with what she has built, and innovated with, over this crazy time period.
For sure. Well, I'm definitely happy to see you guys able to do something, and able to do something safely, which is amazing. And it is so, I don't know, it's so funny that you do mention that link between Ingenuity Fest and technology. Like, Ingenuity Fest has always been about art and music and technology, and right now the big challenge is technology. And so it's awesome that you guys are able to use this as a tool in order to still present to people. So, Meg, tell us a little bit more about how 48-Hour Music Fest kind of originated, and where you came up with the idea to start putting on those shows, and then the idea of bringing this to Emily and the Ingenuity crew.
Absolutely. So yeah, everything Emily just said there is awesome. And I really want to hit the point that, like she said, Ingenuity Fest didn't necessarily know what they were going to do. And at the beginning of what she was saying that the energy behind Ingenuity Fest is always being, quick thinking and community. And so really this idea has only been happening, the combination of our efforts, for about a month. So we've done a lot of work in about a month here to make this incarnation happen. So back in March, with the quarantine, obviously a lot of shows were immediately canceled for myself and a ton of performers. I saw Michelle Goss start up her virtual shows Cleveland, and we're close friends, and we were talking about other ways to start other types of virtual shows. And I think I saw a post that someone was doing like a music marathon online, and I immediately said, well, I can do that. I know a lot of artists in Cleveland. I host all these open mics over the past 5 years. I can get 24 hours of music. Ooh, what if I do 48 hours of music? And that thought happened, the action happened, and within minutes. And I was just direct messaging people on Facebook that I said, hey, do you want to go live for an hour? I'll make a scheduled event, and we'll try to get some audience for you. And you put a virtual tip jar in your live stream, which was new to me. I didn't even know, think about virtual tip jars until 6 months ago. But folks have, Venmo and Cash App and PayPal addresses. So you put that in your post description. And the idea was that anyone could go live at any time and hope to get some virtual tips. But by putting everyone together in one chunk of time, we could all support each other. So all of these artists who were stuck at home with a lot of anxiety about losing gigs, losing money, losing the sense of community even more. I mean, I missed my Monday night open mics. It was like, the pit of my stomach feeling, just missing seeing my friends and my peers and feeling music. So I needed it. I wanted it. I wanted to see my friends play all in one weekend. So very quickly, I got 48 artists, and I wanted to do it all around the clock as opposed to just like a night of music, because with everyone being out of work and at home, so many people were on social media looking for connection, and people were on at all kinds of hours, including grandmas and parents and friends that would not normally be checking their Facebook at 2 or 3 a.m. And because of the nature of social media, sometimes when they were checking their Facebook at that time, they were also sharing content that was more, it was driving more anxiety amongst people seeing it. Like, we were all scared at that time. It's right. Almost hard to remember how scary those first couple weeks of the unknown were, but they were scary. And I thought, hey, if this is the last month, we're going to go out with a bang, and we're going to do, all this music and elevate these beautiful voices and these emotive songwriters to share their stories. So that's kind of how the idea came about. I really thought of it about a week and a half before I launched the first festival. So from the thought to the action, it was all a lot of work that really came together beautifully in that first month. And then I knew I had to do it every month. And I just went with the last weekend of the month, because that's when I had launched it in March. And each month it grew and refined and became, just even more special. We learned new things. We learned new ways that we could not just support ourselves and each other as artists, but to integrate supporting fundraisers and causes and things that were pressing across the board culturally and locally. I might have gotten off track there.
No, that's awesome.
Go back to some of those questions. So the festival grew each month. It was amazing. I brought on, I couldn't stay up for 48 hours straight, so I reached out to some close friends and asked them to help me moderate the festival. So they'd be sharing every live stream to an event page. So it wasn't just going live and trying to find each performer, but it was starting an event page, and then we share every single live stream as the person goes live within a few minutes to the event page. So we want to direct people to each month's event page, and then you can always tune in after the fact too, and scroll up through the videos posted there and see who you might have missed. And then leading up to about a month ago, I got a message from James Carroll and said, "Hey, what do you think about combining 48 Hours Fest with Ingenuity Fest?" And I wrote back in all caps, "Yes." So, here we are.
That's awesome. And so, James, how did you become familiar with what Meg was doing?
Honestly, I followed it right when it got launched. I was very impressed with it. It was something that, when we were all going crazy from, the other sides of each other of our lives, we were kind of like, well, we got nothing else to do. Okay, well, I guess we're going to become farmers. And then out of nowhere, she came out and invented something that we were just kind of like, damn, all right. So I watched it the first month she did it, and I was blown away by it. And then she kept evolving it and kept going with it. And I helped her with a logo on, I think it was like the third month in, and tried to, get some branding for going out there so that she can grow it as big as possible. And then as we led more and more as the months went by, we got to this point where I was like, okay, well, I know we've been stuck with Ingenuity in the back of our minds for a while. And I was like time maligning because she already chose the last weekend of the month. And it already kind of like clicked in my head. And I was like, well, we should probably figure out a way to use this idea that she's definitely innovated and been able to perfect in the last, 6 months. And let's try to integrate it with some of the stuff we've been able to do and try to use this knowledge and make something that can not only grow her brand, but grow ours as well. So very impressed.
And then James, as the music director, did you work with Meg to book the bands that are going to be performing this year? Was that kind of a collaborative effort?
It was definitely a collaborative. She had a lot of people already that's been working with her from the last few months. So I was very supportive in keeping a lot of her tried and true musicians, because this was kind of like giving them a little bit of a better platform to show it on. Not to discredit that, but it's just more kind of grew with the Ingenuity name. And, so I definitely wanted to stick with her, already built up following and her built up artists. And then we added some other ones in there that haven't really played around with the internet live stream too much. Cause that's kind of the big thing that, I think we've all been running into, is a lot of the artists haven't been able to have that fun yet and haven't really been able to figure it out. So we're trying to hopefully give this as a lead into letting them learn this way of life, which I know we don't all like as much as we would have, but, at the same time, it is what it is, and we got to accept it and move on. So I think it's a good thing.
And then, so there are I don't want to say a vast number. There are like a select number of local artists that are going to be performing, but you did still keep sort of that national, those national acts as well that we've kind of become accustomed to having at Ingenuity the past couple of years. So James, can you talk to me about how you got the national acts involved? And then Meg, maybe we can talk a little bit about some of like the local acts that you were able to get involved.
Yeah, sure. Luckily I've been pretty fortunate for the last few years. I've built up a nice chunk of relationships with bands from other cities. And luckily, Calliope Musicals and Dressy Bessie were both really big fans when they both had headlining sets at previous Ingenuities. So reaching out to them, it wasn't actually too hard to kind of say, hey, I've already seen you played with the internet and you've done a couple live stream shows here and there. Would you, mind integrating towards this idea? They were very excited for it, and it surprisingly was able to be locked in really fast. I will admit there's a few other people on the list that didn't necessarily go as planned, but is what it is, and future will tell that stuff. But at the same time, hey, I take what I can get. I'm very, very, very happy with it.
So Carroll Musicals is participating this year, as well as Dressy Bessie were those groups like groups that you kind of were already having like some of these conversations with of like, hey, would you want to do a virtual show for, XYZ kind of organizations that I'm working with? Or how did like those bands in particular become the ones that are kind of like headlining it this year?
So basically my mind kind of went at, as us all, we've been watching a lot of the live stream stuff that have been brought out there. And, I was going through a good list. I probably had, we literally probably crash coursed this in about a month and a half to get this to where we are right now, which luckily with Meg's stuff, like already outline of scheduling and her whole blueprint, that made it possible. So with that already in mind, we were able to kind of sit down there, and I was like, all right, well, I know at least, 5 or 6 artists that have already done live stream shows that I have contact with. And Dressy Bessie was doing some fun stuff in the beginning. It almost looked like I needed to call her just to be like, is everything okay? But luckily she was fine. And I was just like, okay, well, let's give it a shot. And I reached out and they immediately said yes. And it was like, it wasn't anything built off of what would have been the normal festival. That there was some ideas in play. I did reach out to some people that were in mind for that, but the timing of scheduling it all in such a short amount of time seemed more and more impossible. But, surprisingly, there was a few that just kind of got at me, and there was a few that even happened a little later that I was just like kind of shocked, like I wasn't even expecting out of it. So, but yeah, no, it was a good little press. I'm sure with a little bit more time, we probably could have gone a little crazier, but I'm actually very happy where we're at. So,
and who knows what the future holds with a little more time.
Truth.
You guys don't give away all the secrets.
I said, who knows?
And Meg, are there some of the local artists that you're really excited to work with for this for the virtually ingenious?
Yes.
It's a tongue twister.
Is there anyone that excites you a lot?
I mean, I'll name a few, but all of them. Like James said, it's very cool for all of these local artists. I'd say maybe 20 to 30% of them would have played Ingenuity Fest this year, tops, but a lot wouldn't. There's a lot of singer-songwriters. There's only so many times and stages during the physical Ingenuity Fest to get bands and songwriters on stage. So a lot of folks see the Ingenuity name and they yearn to be a part of it. They want to be shared by the Ingenuity Fest page. They want to be seen and heard like any artist does. And I was there before 2016, before I ever played Ingenuity Fest. So I know that feeling of wanting to be aligned with something bigger than you, that you see doing work that you feel passionately in your soul about. So every single artist playing, I'm excited about always when they play my virtual fest, because in a way I'm doing that for them. But like James said, adding the name Ingenuity to this live stream fest is exciting for me. For all of those folks that, deserve, just like any artist does, space to be seen and heard. But, I mentioned last year I hosted a stage at Ingenuity Fest physically, and on that stage I co-hosted it and curated it with Michael McFarland, because we both had multimedia shows that we were debuting. So this year for this virtual fest, we're both doing our multimedia show, and obviously a very different setting, within our homes and live streaming it. But I have to say I'm excited for him to open the fest. Technically, we have some intro content happening between 6 and 7 p.m. But the first performer on Friday is Michael McFarland with his act Hello Head Rush, and that's a virtual multimedia experience. I'm excited for Night's special exclusive presentation. It's going to be just Jenna and Frank. Jenna painting, Frank making some ambient noise. But because they're doing something, exclusive just for this fest, again, a virtual experience, that's exciting. Let's see here, other locals. And I'm excited for every single local artist. Like I said, I've hosted open mics and seen some of the folks that play this virtual fest week after week grow over the years on my small open mic stages. And though my open mics were usually pretty busy, there was always a great audience there. There's nothing like a live stream audience. The potential is endless and honestly exponential, because it's not just people watching you live, but your video stays there. It stays on your page. It stays on the event page. So days, weeks after you play that show, folks, can still be exposed to and experience the art of any of the people playing.
For sure. And so how is this event particularly going to work? If people are interested in tuning in, I know that this will be going on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but how can people get access to this content? What do they have to do?
So all they have to do is go to the event page on Facebook. That is the one place to go to. If they start typing in the search bar, Virtually Ingenious, they'll find that event page. That's the title of the event, nice and short, 2 words, Virtually Ingenious. Type it in your search bar on Facebook and say you're going to the event. Once you say you're going to the event, as everyone knows, you'll probably get some updates letting you know the event has started or that something's been posted to it. So the event page kind of is a life of its own. But of course, we would encourage folks to follow Ingenuity Cleveland's main page and 48 Hour Virtual Music Fest, our main page as well, because we'll be sharing updates there throughout the weekend. But the main place to go is the event page, and all content will be posted there every time new content is shared. So there's pretty much music going live every half hour. Sometimes overnight, it's every hour when it gets into the midnight to 6 a.m. spots. But just keep checking in the event page, and you scroll through the discussion tab, which is where all posts go to live. On an event page, they go under the discussion section as opposed to the general about page. And you can just scroll through and see if you've missed anything or see what's live right now.
Okay, awesome. And so also all the content, all of the different musicians going live will all be shared within that Virtually Ingenious event page. Is any content being shared on the Ingenuity main page or on the Virtual 48 Hour Fest main page?
So yes, there is some content being shared on those pages. There are some highlights. There are a couple of types of content that we're adding new for this month's festival that feels a little different than the past 48-hour virtual music festivals. We can talk a little bit about that. But as Meg said, you really want to go to the event page to make sure that you don't miss a thing. And again, a big piece of what replaces that physical in-person experience is being together, being in community. And so being on that event page, you are able to see what others are liking, what they're commenting on, what they're talking about. You can start a watch party. But also importantly, there will be some little tidbits, some old archival footage and fun artifacts and other items that you don't want to miss. And so staying tuned to the event page is the place to be. But if you happen upon Ingenuity's main page or 48 Hours main page during the week, or certainly during the weekend during the event, there will be plenty of nudges to get on over to the event page.
Gotcha.
Out.
So cool. And then are you kind of running this for the artists like the same way as the 48-hour virtual fest, where you have all of you have the artists kind of streaming from their own homes or other? I know a couple artists were planning on streaming from like venues around town, which is also really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. So they'll all be streaming from home, and then are they sharing like their own tip jar information, or is like Ingenuity taking donations? How are you working that out?
All of the above. So we always encourage any artist playing this festival to share their own tip jar. So when an artist sets up their post from their own page, whether it's a personal or band page, we encourage them to do a little description of what they're doing, to include their tip jar. And then we did start about 3 months ago supporting fundraisers and organizations. So they're familiar with that process. And just like other organizations we've supported in the past, we're asking them to link a donation link to Ingenuity Cleveland. So people do go live from their own page, but just like past events, we have moderators watching for them to go live, copying and pasting their post and taking it over to the event page. So the really cool thing about that is you might have an artist go live and, 10, 15 of their friends are tuning in because it's their friend or someone they're a fan of that artist. But hopefully, what happens is the artist, is talking about the event that they're a part of, or some of our moderators will comment on their live stream video and say, hey, so glad you're enjoying this content. Hop on over to the event page because we have a ton more for you. So there will be live streams happening both from the person's page, but then that video is shared to the event page, and we get people over there to know that the party doesn't stop with just this one live stream happening. And then, we're linking the fundraiser started for Ingenuity Cleveland. It'll be in the artist post descriptions as well. And same goes if they're streaming from a venue. Usually it's just, the singer or whoever in the band sends their phone out there in the audience and hits go live. But of course, it'll be awesome to see, the venues in the background. Apostle Jones is live streaming from the Rock Hall, Saturday at 6 p.m. I'm pretty sure that's the time they're in. And, Brent Kirby over at Forest City. And we've got someone going live from the B-sides. So it's really nice that the venues are getting involved in, especially in this incarnation of the festival as well.
Very cool.
And I think, a special piece of that too is to really highlight what venues have been doing in the shutdown. So I know Muamin 2 p.m. from May Halls, we will be doing interviews with a lot of the venue owners. Throughout the festival, there'll be some content showing what everybody has been up to. There have been amazing physical changes to May Halls to Beachland. Everyone has really found unique ways to work together during this time. And so part of this is our way of showcasing that. And in addition, we'll be having some hosted discussions about what that process has been like. So one piece of the puzzle that we're adding is webinars. This is something that Ingenuity has been doing virtually and throughout our time over the summer. So we're going to hear from the Cleveland Music Club Coalition and Arts Cleveland about the Save Our Stages initiative. And, I think what's great about that discussion is not only to showcase how artists, musicians, promoters, clubs, and nonprofits have banded together to advocate for real material help from the state and from county level government. And there's just been, so much we want to report on. But it's also just the process of organizations working together to make those changes that is in and of itself, silver lining seems like a little too flip, right? But it is the real piece of this that I think bodes well for the future, and we want to showcase a little bit of that and have some discussions around that. So that's another way that viewers can tune in and participate throughout the event. We have another, similarly, we'll be talking about ways to support artists and makers of color, musicians of color, promoting equity in the arts landscape. We've got a discussion format called the Long Discussion, which is a really interesting way to pass off conversations amongst different types of artists and creatives to share their perspective. But, all of that, I think, is what going forward, it's not just putting together content, but it's the conversations and how do we do this? And we got to band together and figure something out that is equally, if not more exciting.
Yeah. I think that all of our listeners out there, or the people that are tuned in to this conversation, will be extremely excited to hear some of those discussions and participate in that dialogue. I know that we've had a lot of conversation and coverage on those kind of issues on Live from Cleveland also the past couple of months. So that's awesome that you are holding space for all of that, and it's a great addition. So that's awesome. As far as the acts that you guys kind of incorporated musically, it sounds awesome. It sounds like there's so many like visually arresting and awesome multimedia and art kind of performances that you found specifically for Ingenuity. Because I was wondering, like, how are you going to kind of balance out that art aspect that it seems like we're kind of the visual art aspect that we're kind of losing. We've got the music, we've got the technology, but we are missing on the art. So you've talked a little bit about Nights and how they're doing live painting. Can you, maybe Meg, can you explain a little bit more about yours and Michael's multimedia performance?
Absolutely. I wish I had the tagline. I don't know if anyone else can look it up really quick, how Michael describes his show. But it's basically like a future scenario. You know, he uses projector screens, and there's various versions of himself. They're like space people, and they all, you know, they interact with each other like a band. It's visually stimulating, let's just say that for sure, and interesting and conceptual. For my show, similarly, I'm using a projector in my home, which was lended to me actually by one of the engineers. So full circle family connection. And I set up a sheet. You can kind of see it on the side of my screen here. It's pulled back right now, but I've got sheets and things hanging all over my apartment. And my show, it's a concept album as well, which is I've been using the phrase 2020 visions a lot this year, because as an artist, you know, sometimes you imagine a future that isn't always, it's just a thing anyway. When I wrote this album, it was a thing about a time like now where people really needed to unlearn what they knew and come together as a community. And the title of my show is A Light in the Distance. And that's something we've all been saying a lot lately. Like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, there's a light in the distance. But it really is about any one person's journey to find that strength and love and self-love within themselves to pursue and persist. And again, for any artists listening, you know, we all doubt ourselves and struggle and don't feel like there is space for us sometimes. And that's really what my show is about making space for yourself to listen to your own voice. But the multimedia side of it, super cool. I got a projector. I interact with the projections in front of and behind a sheer material. So it's kind of trippy looking. And I perform music, and I have backing tracks happening during that. We've also got some fire dancing from Amanda Nix. Her act is called Fiercely Serene. And as I mentioned to someone else, it wouldn't be Ingenuity Fest if there wasn't fire. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. We're going to see some fire on screen. And she's actually done some live painting in the past as well. I think we do have some other visual artists, things happening, you know, some cool stuff, but I can't off the top of my head right now name.
I can speak a little bit more to what some of that looks like. There's a virtual reality space created by Ross Bachnick Interactivation and Ed Mora. We're also lucky to have, again, kind of pulling in on some of our national contacts that have presented with us, large-scale multimedia art by George Berlin, who typically does large-scale projections and projected art spaces. He will be curating a digital VR space as well as the Mothership. Another piece of it that I think will be really exciting is just hearing stories similarly from visual artists. So in the same way that our musicians get to share a little bit of FaceTime with the audience and share their story, talk about their songs, we're going to be doing studio visits with a wide range of artists and entrepreneurs that Ingenuity typically would interact with, and hear about everything from folks who have used this time to really innovate their business, create new product lines, learn more about how to market themselves in virtual space. But really, how has this all awakened the artistic process?
For sure. Talking a little bit about some of the discussions that you are having going and keeping kind of racial equity at the forefront this time around too for Ingenuity Fest. Can you tell me maybe about some of the groups that have people of color in them that are going to be performing? If people want to keep a specific eye out for those bands and those performers, to make sure they tune in and make sure they support those performers specifically. James,
sure.
I don't know if you want to take that one, or anyone.
I could do it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we, as Emily said, we got Muamin Collective playing live at May Halls on Sunday. Joel Big Green will be playing on Friday, or no, actually he's on Sunday.
Sunday evening.
He's on Sunday evening. Artazar is playing at the B-side. We got, who else? Daddy Longlegs. That's actually quite quite a good mixture.
I would love to shout out to Molly's Emergence Ensemble. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her showcase there, but she has a few women of color in it, but it's an all-female cast, sort of a theater-based act where they're singing to Molly playing piano, and she has a really beautiful theater show she's crafted that would normally be like in a play setting, but she's only doing a half-hour set, so I think they're highlighting some songs from that show. But again, a diverse cast there, a really beautiful group of women performing together.
Tanisha Salary is going to be joining us with Soul, and that will be a beautiful way to open up Sunday morning. As these folks have said, it's a really diverse group in terms of performers, and then in terms of the visual art side, we will be checking in with Corey Michaels, who we almost forgot to mention, you guys, who has dropped such an amazing new video.
Yeah, that thing's amazing.
We
Very
were talking
colorful
about it earlier. We're going to have him on the show.
And
now with our virtual kind of platform, we can even show the video and have him like react to it. So I'm going to have subsequent weeks, we'll have to have him back on.
Shout out to Corey Michaels. Yeah.
That'd be a pretty cool series, like a behind the video kind of thing, like throwback 90s.
Actually, I was just thinking about that recently, about doing commentary on content, like the way you do a commentary on a TV show when you watch it on like a DVD. That's a great idea, Rachel.
Absolutely. And I want to give
lots of ideas out there of what we can do and utilize with this. Emily, what were you going to say?
I want to give a shout out to a group of visual artists that we are going to be hearing from all throughout the process. It's a group that has participated in the Voices of Cleveland project, Ingenuity and Downtown Cleveland Alliance, along with Carroll Houseland Studio, all have banded together to produce a new series of outdoor installations throughout the city of Cleveland, elevating voices of color. And those pieces are downtown. They're at University Circle. They're in St. Clair Superior. They're in Glenville. But one of the things I'm most excited for is to sit down with all of those different artists and learn about their works and what they've been up to as well. So a good mix of content there too.
Very cool.
Just real quick, I'm not sure if we said the time, but that other webinar, which Emily was called The Longest Conversation, or The Long Conversation?
The Discussion?
The Long Discussion?
The long conversation,
okay.
But also making a more equitable movement for the maker movement. But Saturday and Sunday at 2 p.m. and then also rebroadcast throughout the event time.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure those times got heard. So 2 p.m. is the time for our two webinars, both Saturday and Sunday.
Cool. And so do some of those webinars have like an additional event page for them, or is there a place where people can go to find this schedule announced yet, or is this going to be announced soon?
You know how it goes, because we've been, crunching time and honestly asking people, up till the last minute. Yes, we're going to officially release something very soon. But again, the event page, as long as you're checking the event page throughout the weekend, you'll be seeing the stuff posted. And that's why I wanted to make sure that you heard, the webinars were at 2 p.m., both Saturday and Sunday. But the visual schedule with, there's probably about 100 people that are participating in this event. There's probably more than 100 with all those little spotlights we're doing. So it's a lot of work for James. He's working on it right now.
Yeah, I see him. I see his eyes moving. He's like dragging each of the times into place.
I do not what you're talking about.
Sorry, James.
Totally
we'll let you go soon so that you can come up
fine.
with a schedule for us.
You're fine.
I think like one of my final questions. When does this all kick off on Friday? What time this Friday, September 25th, does everything kind of kick off?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. on the dot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's very similar to how Ingenuity Fest would have been operating had we had it physically all together at the Hamilton building. So it's very similar times for what's going to be happening, except for the fact that you guys are kind of going through the evening with this into like the morning. Who are like some of the wee hour kind of performances that you've got lined up?
Saturday night, 3 a.m, you can hear some amazing throat singing. We have storytelling and storytelling and new media at, when is Thomas, Meg? I'm looking at the schedule.
I'm sorry, I can't open the schedule and Skype at the same time, so I apologize. But
here's I think the story is it's late night and you got to be there to see that you saw it go down.
Absolutely. I wanted to say too, Tom Stoll, another engineer, is doing something really interesting. I don't even know if I understand it, so that's at 3 a.m. maybe the next night. But it's some kind of chamber music integrated that was recorded at the Hamilton, I believe.
So Tom Stoll is a PhD sound artist who has taken a landscape of sounds from recorded from the real world and reorganize them into as Meg says, an orchestral work. So again, it will be truly interesting.
Very cool. And then when do things wrap up on Sunday?
So traditionally with the 48-hour virtual music fest, the first 2 months, actually, I didn't play with my band, Meg and the Magnetosphere, for months because of quarantine. We just didn't see each other. So I think the third or fourth month, people started going back out and interacting with each other. So my band got back together and we started making it a thing to wrap up the festival with my band. So keeping gratefully in line with that, my band will be wrapping up with the last act of the weekend about 11 p.m. Sunday night. And we'll play for about 45 minutes, and then we might throw a few more video content things into the event page just to say thank you and good night. But right around midnight, Sunday night, 11:59 p.m. Sunday night, let's say that because it gets confusing when you say midnight.
Sure.
Everything will wrap up at 11:59 p.m. Sunday night.
Awesome. And one more time for people at home who want to find out more information, Emily, what is the Ingenuity Fest website and Facebook page where they can find more information?
So 3 places I'm going to say. They can check out on Facebook, Ingenuity Cleveland. They can check out 48-hour virtual music fest CLE. But the real thing that we want them to remember, they can find everything else from there, is virtually ingenious. It is virtually ingenious.
Awesome. And I know a lot of the artists too are already taking to Facebook, to Instagram, and kind of like telling people when their sets are. So also, if there's somebody that you're excited to see and you see their name in the virtually ingenious lineup, I would suggest too kind of following those artists and just, specifically also looking for their sets and going to that event page too. So that's awesome. Yeah. And my final question is, what have you kind of learned through this process this year? What has been a big takeaway that like you haven't had in years past? And if that takeaway could help somebody else that is looking to kind of take their festival online, how could they do it?
Be open. I think, this gets back, maybe I was waxing poetic a little bit too early in the interview, but it's be open to what is coming down the pike. I think, Ingenuity spent a lot of time this year contributing towards, the long game, the big vision, how do we ensure that we're here to support the arts community and the creative community, and kind of weather this storm. But then somebody who's done an amazing job of innovating comes along. Well, our piece of the puzzle is, always to support those who are doing the work. That's really why Ingenuity exists. And so, be open to what's coming down the pike. And Meg, I think, would echo this, like, don't get too wrapped up in how you think it should be, or it has to be technologically perfect, or it should have X production value. It's really about, putting your work out there, getting out in front of audiences, putting your work out there, and from that, great things can happen.
I would say I absolutely would echo that. I would say just ask for anyone else trying to innovate out there. If you're not sure, look who's doing what and ask to align, seek community. I learned again a long time ago with just hosting open mic nights that lifting other people up really does lift yourself up. And so I wanted to hear music from my friends when I started the virtual festival, and I couldn't be more grateful 7 months later to be working with the skill set that Ingenuity Cleveland brings to what we're doing now with this festival. So persist and don't be afraid to try new things. And like Emily said, it's not the facade of perfection, one of the many veils that have been torn down in 2020. We're authentic, we're vulnerable, and we are just expressing ourselves. So just keep doing that. And again, community is everything.
James, anything specific that you kind of have learned through doing this?
I mean, honestly, they both said pretty much it all. I mean, the big thing, we all sat home for a few months and we all kind of stared into space and we all kind of wondered what the next possibility in life would be. And, I'm very proud to be working with two creative people that have been able to, develop a good team that made, my random side thought turn into their random side thought and so on and so forth. And we were able to make something happen. And at the same time, I want everybody else out there to see that there is possibilities to be had even in this dark and scary time that we're all kind of living through, but we're all there neutral and we're in this shit together. So I think, this is a great example of what possible things can be made with the right amount of thinking. And, there's going to be some hiccups along the way, but at the same time, if you don't just keep picking yourself back up, you're going to keep falling down. So just what it is.
So awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation tonight. Emily, James, and Meg, this was such a cool way to kind of get everybody together and excited for Virtually Ingenious, the first virtual live stream and archive, because they will be archived afterwards, music festival that Ingenuity Fest has tried to produce. Do you think that in the future you might keep some of these, some of what you learned, like some of the live streaming for?
Absolutely.
I personally say absolutely, too.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's that silver lining and just constant innovation.
So cool. All right, we will be rebroadcasting this interview, the audio only, on Live from Cleveland tomorrow night on WRUW-FM 91.1. So if you missed any part of our conversation, you can tune in then from 10 to 11 p.m. on our website, WRUW.org, or on terrestrial radio 91.1 FM. And this discussion will also be archived on our Facebook page, facebook.com/live from Cleveland radio. So if you missed some of our conversation, you want to go back, see what we talked about, you can tune back in and re-listen to the whole thing. It's also available on our YouTube page, WRUW-FM. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You
Thank
too.
you so much, Rachel.
Take care.
Bye.
Rachel.
Have a good